together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid on this Monday, a day after a very exciting day in the National Football League yesterday. We'll recap all of the games, go through it all for you. Of course, we will break down the latest in college football as well. Vinnie Iyer will be with us from Sporting News. Also, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report as we break down the National Football League with our friend Adam Caplan, who has the latest insight into the National Football League news, notes, and information as well. And those of you who stayed up last night to watch the Rams and Eagles, boy, you were treated to a show on the ground, one of the greatest games in the history of fantasy football, by the way. Saquon Barkley with a 50 spot yesterday. Incredible. The Rams, they fought a little bit, but they could not stop the Eagles' offense. And it does appear as though these Eagles, remember, who faded down the stretch last season, aren't doing the same this year, as they end up winning the game yesterday. 37-20 was the final there. And now the Philadelphia Eagles are in a position potentially to get a bye in the first round of the NFL playoffs. Now, on the flip side, the Rams are certainly up against it. But if the Rams can't stop anybody on defense, and specifically can't stop the running games of opposing teams, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford say they're in some trouble.
Really, congrats to Philadelphia. They did a good job. They did, way too many good things explosive-wise in the running game for us to be able to overcome. I thought we came out ready to go. The turnover really hurt us, obviously. I thought, when it's a one-possession game, they ended up scoring quickly coming out of the half, and then we were able to match it, and then it just kind of got away from us. But there's humbling nights like this in football. It's all about how you respond. I do know that this team has the capability to be able to respond, and we'll get ourselves off the mat, and we'll have a good week of preparation this week.
Yeah, you gotta, obviously look at the tape of this one, figure out, where to go from there as far as, what you did wrong. How can we correct those things? Not gonna let these guys beat us twice. This is the NFL. You play this game long enough, you're gonna have unfortunate nights. You're gonna have nights where you don't play as good as you possibly can. You don't ever want them to get out of hand like they did, but got to move on to the next one and give your full attention to the next team.
Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles, probably the best offseason acquisition of any player in the NFL, has got to be running back Saquon Barkley. I mean, running for a lot of yards and in the process making these moves that we never see from players in the NFL. He's amazed as head coach Nick Sirianni.
For those types of runs.
Yeah, he on the first play of the second half, he makes a cut that I didn't think anybody else could make. Like, he just stopped on a dime. We blocked it really well. Jordan Mailata did an awesome job on the backside. Landon did an awesome job on the backside because we ran an outside zone, and we were able to cut the backside off. And so, first and foremost, to get into the open field, it started up front. It started on the front side, then obviously what we did on the backside. And then he made this cut that, man, he put his left foot in the ground and went around the edge, and then he just hit the gas. And it looked like I couldn't tell, but it looked like we had some guys hustling downfield to get the blocks. But man, when you have the type of quickness, lateral movement that Saquon has, with the ability to accelerate and the speed to finish, and the power to break it through an arm tackle, or I mean, he's got everything you look for in a back. He's been awesome, and he was awesome tonight.
Once again, Saquon Barkley and the Eagles surging. Maybe the team to beat, though, in the NFC and the NFL are the Detroit Lions. They won their 9th straight game yesterday. They're now 10-1 on the season as they take out the Indianapolis Colts 24-6, easily covering the 7.5-point spread. One of the more exciting games of the day yesterday, Bears down 2 touchdowns, come back late to tie, get an onside kick, and even took this thing to overtime. They fall short by a final of 30-27. Incredible performance late by Caleb Williams and company, but the Vikings hang on to get the win. Carolina Panthers, hey, Bryce Young had a really good game yesterday. They fought Patrick Mahomes and company right down to the wire. Chiefs 10.5-point favorites. They eke this one out with a Butker field goal late, 30-27. Key play in the game late was not the arm of Patrick Mahomes, but Mahomes running the ball late to put them in field goal position.
Yeah, we expected a man coverage. They got into a type of like match zone. So they covered up our routes, and I got out to the left, and at that point in the game, yards were more important than getting out of bounds. And so with the 3 timeouts, I tried to just cut through, and I think it was Justin Watson. I haven't seen the video, but I thought he got a great block. I think it was him, and I was able to get down the field and get out of bounds. Kind of fumbled out of bounds, but I got out of bounds, and so I got us in field goal range. Yeah, I think it's just certain times in games. It's not like I pre-plan like that stuff. It's just whenever it comes down to it, and you got to make the play. I feel like I try to go out there and make the play, and that's why I feel like it happens kind of later in games sometimes, and in the playoffs, you don't want to slide. You have to kind of put your body out there, knowing that you can take hits and stuff like that. But we've been able to make some big runs and some big moments.
Washington Commanders yesterday, 10.5-point favorites against the Dallas Cowboys. Not only did they not cover, they didn't even win the game outright. The Cowboys end up winning this one by a final of 34-26. Washington did rally late to get this game in position to tie with under a minute to go, but the Cowboys ran back a kick for a touchdown, and that ended up being the final, 34-26 yesterday. In terms of the NFC West, it's a little bit murkier than it was 24 hours ago. The Seattle Seahawks end up beating the Arizona Cardinals 16-6 yesterday. Seattle wins, they cover, and now all of a sudden, who's going to win this division? Who knows? It may not be the San Francisco 49ers. Without Brock Purdy, they do not come close at Green Bay. 38-10, the final, as the Packers surging toward the playoffs, and San Francisco probably has to win out. We'll see if Brock Purdy ends up playing this week. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins are headed in the right direction. They dismantled the New England Patriots 34-15. Patriots scored a couple of late touchdowns to make this game closer than it would appear. Mike McDaniel, the head coach, likes the way things are going and trending.
I think it was another game where, he's found a way to improve the way that he plays the position throughout the game. So in previous years, we just spent a lot of time talking about the most monumental thing that you have to overcome as a quarterback is playing the position regardless of the ebbs and flows of emotion. So not changing how you play based upon positive or negative results and letting every play stand on its own. And I think, since maybe the Buffalo game on, I think he's really taken a step forward in that direction. So him him playing at the level that I think that he has the last couple games was a feat in it of itself, because it's become more of the norm and not the exception. So,
one of the bigger upsets in the NFL yesterday did come in the Titans-Texans game. Houston had every opportunity, by the way, to win this game in the end, but it is the Titans picking up a rare win, 32-27 over the Texans in Houston. By the way, the New York Giants made a quarterback change. It looked more of the same. Buccaneers smashed them 30-7, the final in that game. The Harbaugh Bowl is tonight. Ravens and Chargers. Ravens 2.5-point favorites. Also, New York Post reporting an off-season baseball signing. I haven't seen a lot of these yet. UC Kikuchi to the Angels, 3 years and $63 million. That looks to be the case. Also in college football, Quinn Ewers looks like he's avoided a major injury as Texas is trying to get themselves into good position in the college football playoff. They end up beating Kentucky. Ewers probably going to play this week. 3 losses for Alabama. They end up losing again. This time it's to the Oklahoma Sooners. In all likelihood, Alabama on the outside looking in for the college football playoff. Same could be said for Mississippi. They lose to the Florida Gators, final 24-17 on Saturday. Kansas Jayhawks with another upset. This time it's against the Colorado Buffaloes, as the Buffs were looking to get in that college football playoff, still to be determined, 37-21. And the wildest game of the college football weekend, Auburn beats Texas A&M 43-41. It required 4 overtime periods to get to the end result there. We'll be right back with Vinnie Iyer, Sporting News. Don't go away.
Chris Cyborg, 39 years of age. Larissa Pacheco, only 30. Cyborg 2 inches taller. Equal measurement on the arm reach for these women. Slightly longer legs for Chris Cyborg. Touch of the gloves, and we are underway in our co-main event. Cauliflower.
No, it might be beautiful.
Big kick. How did she take that? Pacheco just ate it.
Wow.
Measured and controlled in her breathing. Oh, nasty left hand snuck over the top for Cyborg. Pacheco, she will literally and figuratively smell blood in the water. Oh, there's the guillotine!
Another beautiful takedown, but she put herself right in harm's way. That is tight.
Good short elbow there.
Very nice.
Oh. Good overhand right there from Cyborg. That was a solid right hand. Eating some punches.
Watch the back of the head, Chris. Watch the back of the head. First deep breath I've seen Larissa take in this fight. Just about 10 seconds ago. Nice takedown.
Rolls through onto an ankle, maybe. 15 seconds, and we're going to see some wildness. Yeah, of course we are.
Both women landed there. They'll swing away to the final bell here.
9-46, I'll have it for the winner by unanimous decision. And now the PFL Superfights Women's Featherweight World Champion, Chris Cyborg.
The legend adds to her legacy. Chris Cyborg.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We're joined by Vinnie Iyer of Sporting News to go over the latest in the National Football League. Vinnie, welcome back to the show here on this Monday ahead of the Thanksgiving Day holiday. And let's start off with the game last night. Vinnie, fair to say that if you are playing fantasy football and you're still in it at this point and you care, which hopefully you do, if you played and had Saquon Barkley, you won. And if you didn't and played against him, you probably lost. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a massive season. We thought it could be a good fit here with the Eagles. Running game was already pretty dominant with the players that they had. And now you see Saquon Barkley, he's just doing everything for them. And it's really helped a little bit along the way. They've had wide receiver injuries. Last night, Devonta Smith was out for the second time this season. A.J. Brown has missed time. Dallas Goedert has missed time. So they've had to make Saquon the focal point of this offense, whether he's running or catching the ball. And we know he loves prime time. We know he's running with a little chip on his shoulder from what happened with the Giants. And you're seeing that revival of the season as he stays healthy. So it continues. So we thought Derrick Henry might be the best free agent signing coming over to the Ravens. But Barkley and Henry were pretty even going into this week. So it's Henry's turn to answer because Barkley just blew him out of the water to take a big edge here on that front with the running game.
Yeah, 302 total yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he has been one of the most impressive offensive players in the entire NFL this season. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, anyone. And in fact, right now, Vinny, the odds are really jumping in their favor to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's a 2-team race at this point, Detroit, Philadelphia. I mean, you could take a shot on Minnesota. Their schedule is not all that difficult, but it just doesn't seem as likely for me, considering they're just not nearly as good as those teams. Any reason to take Philly here? I mean, Detroit has such an easy, clear path at this point. Hard to see them anything less than, what would you say, 14-3?
Yeah, I mean, Lions are fast tracking here to the number 1 seed. It looks like the Eagles are going to put pressure on them the whole way, and the Vikings are still there. I mean, they got to worry about their division. So the Lions are going to be motivated all the way through the final week of the season, week 18. So it's going to be an interesting race to watch. I think the Eagles, the one thing they could have the edge over the Lions is their run defense is very good, but the Lions' run defense is also very good. So that'll be an interesting matchup if they get to that point. I think Jalen Hurts is less dependent on the running game exploding to have the downfield passing game work as Jared Goff. So, but it looks like that collision course is happening here, right, with the 49ers fading that injury. And we'll see. The Vikings-Packers are just a little too inconsistent to include in that mix. And who knows, maybe Seattle makes a run, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, Lions dismantled the Colts, and a lot of smart people really liked Indianapolis yesterday, and I guess just sort of betting against the Lions covering and winning in every game. They're going to have to do it again on Thursday, but certainly right now they've been the best betting team in the National Football League, and at this point, Vinny, it just doesn't really matter who their personnel has been. They lost Jamison Williams for some games. He comes back. It's been, different running backs. Jared Goff doesn't, every once in a while, Jared Goff throws for a lot of yards, but generally it's like in the 200 range. He's just very efficient, and their defense has been great as well.
Yeah, the one game where they really struggled of late was that Texans game with all the interceptions. And the key to Lions is if they can run the ball with any kind of success, and we saw the Colts are not very good against the run, they're going to blow teams out of the water because that's how their passing game also generates the explosive plays. They need the running with the play action with Jared Goff thrown downfield. Everything opens up for that offense once Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery get going. Now, if you can somehow contain those guys, then it's kind of the key of the offense. But Lions are not going to let you do that easily because their offensive line,
right?
It's hard to adjust to both backs. We'll see if David Montgomery can stay healthy. That would be a significant loss if he can't go. Maybe they'll give him Thursday off against his former team, the Bears, and still be okay. But yeah, the Lions just know what they're doing every single week. It's pretty consistent. And those are teams you're also looking for with betting. You know exactly what you're going to get versus any variables that might pop up.
All right, Patriots and Dolphins yesterday. Dolphins 7.5-point favorites. This game was over at the half. It was 24-0. New England scored some late points to make it seem a little bit closer than it was, but make no mistake about it, Miami is just so much better. Like every team, Vinny, is better with their starting quarterback in the NFL. It's not a secret. Tua is just much better than anybody else that they have. But I guess if we expanded the conversation, I know that they're beating up on these bad teams, New England, the Raiders. I still don't think they're getting in, Vinny. Like even though their schedule says Jets twice and Browns, those are not gimme games for a team like Miami because they're going to have to go to cold weather. You know how that has gone over the past, 50 years at the Browns, at the Jets to end the season. I do think they're going to finish better maybe than this 7.5 win total that I see here, but I don't know that 9-8 is enough to get in.
Yeah, and those are some tough games after that point as well. I mean, you look at the defenses they're going to face. I mean, it's not going to be as easy. I mean, you mentioned the 3 games they just beat up, Rams, Raiders, and Patriots. These are not world-beating defenses. These are defenses you can pretty much do anything you want in terms of passing and running. So, and then Dolphins are different, right? They're not this explosive team in the same way. They're spreading the ball around more horizontally to try to get the ball out of Tua's hands after all the hits and the latest concussion. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I never would imagine that they would have a game where he has under 50 receiving yards and they still blow out a team with plenty of offense. But that's what happened yesterday, where Tua's distributing to the back a little bit more, Devin Achane scoring twice, Waddle the short area, Jonas Smith at tight end. So they've kind of adjusted the offense for Tua in the right way, I think, to keep him upright and keep him healthy, because you're right. If he's healthy, they're a pretty good offense, but if he's out, they're just terrible.
Yeah, I do think they win more than that 7.5. I just don't know that it's 10. All right, Ravens 2.5-point favorites in the Harbaugh Bowl tonight. Total of 50.5. I know a lot of people are surprised by this total, but Vinny, right now what's happening is the Chargers are finally facing some offensive teams. They're still winning, but a lot of points are being scored. Home dog Monday night, generally speaking, is going to win more than half of the time. Is that the case tonight?
Well, I think it's a different place. I mean, we know Los Angeles is not the same home as other homes. Sometimes we saw that last night. It really didn't help the Rams at all. And a lot of Eagles fans were there. I don't know if the Ravens fans are going to flock the same way, but you get this matchup, I think, especially after the Ravens kind of got in their own way last week against Pittsburgh. I think they'll rebound tonight. And the Chargers will play well, but I do like the Ravens to win the game and
all right,
maybe take care of that small number.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word. Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We'll get into the very latest in the NFL here from the Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and also our social media correspondent Casey Hudson has an update on the Rams. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, let's begin with one of the most anonymous teams in the last decade or so at 9-2. Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings are 9-2. They're not like setting the world on fire. They're not scoring a lot on offense. They even got beat up a little bit by the Chicago Bears yesterday. But at the end of the season, they're going to end up either winning the division, coming in second, making the playoffs. And then the question is how far they can go from there. But at the very least, you have to give them credit for Sunday. Being up 2 touchdowns, having the Bears come all the way back, get the onside kick. Even the Bears got the ball in overtime, and somehow the Vikings end up still winning this game. Sam Darnold really loved the way his team battled by giving it up, but then getting the win.
First and foremost, what a resilient win. From everyone in that locker room, just super proud of those guys. As an offense, I said it to Laura after the game, but I feel like, we could have been a lot better in certain situations. Just the O-line, I think too, like the way that they leaned on the game the way that they leaned on that defensive line in the second half, and the linebackers, I thought was incredible. And speaking of those guys, I want to give a ton of credit to Chicago. I feel like they played a really good game. Their scheme, their players, everything that they do is super tough. And, we were able to come out, like I said, just a resilient effort by everyone, and very proud of that one.
Sam, in overtime, what's your mindset there? I mean, the outcome was obviously very, very good. But what's your mindset when you come on the field knowing that touchdown or any score wins it?
Just execute. It's as simple as that. Just one play at a time. That's what I think I tell the guys that every single time in the huddle. But that's my mindset every single time I'm out there on the field, especially in that situation. You're expecting to, obviously recover the onside kick and just take some knees. So your mindset, you got to get ready to go back out there and execute at a high level. And I feel like our offense did a really good job of that, obviously in overtime.
9-2 now on the season, just trailing the Detroit Lions, who have one lone loss this year. They're doing it on offense. They're doing it on special teams. But yesterday, the Lions may have had one of the best defensive performances they've had all season long at Indianapolis. Head coach Dan Campbell wanted to give them credit before throwing any love over to his offense.
I would highlight our defense first. I mean, there again, this is, whatever it is, 10 quarters without allowing a touchdown. 3 last games in the second half, we're not allowing it. So, man, we are, we talk about all the time, limiting points, play physical style, shut down the run. We were able to do that. We knew Jonathan Taylor was going to be the guy we needed to shut down. We did that. They quarterback runs, they got us on a couple, but for overall, we did what we needed to do, and we kept them out of that game. Offense, so much of it was really the way it went down early in the game. We were able to kind of get that lead. 2 of those drives went down and scored touchdowns, which was big, and then just kind of kept them at arm's length to where they couldn't quite get to us. And a lot of that was field position. We talked about going in the game. Field position was going to be big. We were going to lean on Jack Fox, and boy, he came through for us. What a monster day, pinning those guys inside the 20 numerous times. So overall team effort, good win. That's 10. And now we got to get ready for Chicago in a short week back home.
They'll play on Thanksgiving. Philly and LA played last night. Rams came up short, but Casey Hudson, our social media correspondent, says don't count them out.
A Rams team that has a lot of talent falls short to the Eagles, 37-20, and their playoff dreams are just kind of getting darker and darker by the week. But a bright spot for this Rams roster is Puka Nacua. He's one of 5 NFL players in 23 or fewer games to have 2,000 scrimmage yards. It's tremendous how strong of a wide receiver Puka Nacua is and how much he helps this team. Plus, his props moving forward, extremely favorable for any contention that the Rams will remain in. They still have big games coming up to see whether or not they'll be able to close out on a postseason. They've started this season under 500 before, made that pivotal turnaround after the bye week. Right now, they've just got to find a way to protect Matthew Stafford so that those big plays can come to life. So when you're looking ahead for the positive, when it comes to this Rams roster, it's Puka Nacua all day, looking at his yardage, looking at those receptions, and looking to find him in the end zone so that he can help this Rams team stay alive.
We'll be right back with Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report next.
two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Pat Evans in the house from Legal Sports Report. Oh my gosh, is it possible that sports betting is not coming to Missouri? We're going to dive into that as we begin the show here. That's not what I wanted to start off the show with. What I do want to start off the show with, Pat, is Happy Thanksgiving coming to you and your family. Are the plans in-house this year, out of house? I know usually you're on the road, I think, for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, thankfully, my parents live about a mile away, so I'll be at their house this year. And, you know, being a Michigander, we're really excited about the Lions, who, of course, play every Thanksgiving. And this year feels a lot like the Cubs in 2016. I'm a big Cubs fan here in West Michigan. And so I don't know. 10-1, they looked real good yesterday, even with all these injuries. They keep next man up mentality, and they're really crushing. So I'm excited about the Lions, and that's what I'm going to be doing on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central Standard Time, first game of the day against the Bears. All right, so now let's dive into the latest in sports betting, and let's start off with Missouri as they passed to legalize sports betting. There was some discussion that, by the way, by December 1st or December 15th, that it could actually go live, but now all of a sudden we're hearing rumors of a potential recount. Was the vote that close, Pat, that this could actually go through and go the other way?
The vote was insanely close, and I think that's what you're focusing on right now. Thankfully, when you dive into it, you know, it doesn't look like there's going to be a recount. The opposition party that, of course, started with a lawsuit to challenge the validity of the ballot initiative, and then a giant campaign that was the most ever spent against a ballot initiative in Missouri, has kind of fallen back. They've told local media that they won't be asking for a recount, even though it does appear to be in the margin of error to allow for that. So I think we're in the clear at this point, but it is kind of a unique thing because of how close it was. I mean, on election day, we said, okay, it's passed. You know, the Secretary of State, they didn't, you know, exactly say it passed, but, you know, the Winning for Missouri Education, the campaign behind it did come out and declare victory and everything. But as we've come to find out more and more now that elections aren't done on election day, of course. And so last week there was a deadline for all these voter jurisdictions to submit their finalized vote counts to the Secretary of State. And it dropped from almost 5,000 votes in favor above a winning margin for the ballot initiative to fewer than 400 votes. And that's how close it got as more and more jurisdictions submitted their final results. It did come back to almost 5,000 in a margin for the ballot initiative. So I think we're in the clear. But boy, that is a close election if you think about it. I mean, I think it's 50.07%. Wow. And it did, of course, need 50% to surpass the count that it needed. So yeah, crazy close. And hey, it does seem like it's not going to get a recount though. So the Missouri Gaming Commission is hard at work, I'm sure, getting everything in order, getting the application process going. And the operators, I'm sure, because there haven't been any launches lately, very excited to get into the Show Me State.
Yeah, definitely so. We'll see if it happens this year or next. All right, so now let's get into a very small market for sports betting, Wyoming. Let's dive in next here. I'm seeing an article over on Legal Sports Report about a possible expansion, maybe some horse racing, and some other casino expansion talk as well. What's the latest there?
Yeah, so earlier this year, the legislator said, hey, we need to get a good gambling study to see what we can do to better, improve our gambling market here. And as we know, as we've talked about at length, the next kind of phase of gambling expansion in the U.S., now that sports betting is in pretty much every market that it will be, is online casino. And yeah, a lot of this gaming report, which was turned in last week, focuses on kind of how to make it a better horse racing state, including, simulcasting its races out of the state and increasing their historical horse racing kind of ecosystem, which of course is slot machine-like machines that are based on historical horse races, which is just bonkers to me in the first place. But there was also kind of a lot of talk about online gambling expansion. It does say, hey, this is probably a good way to make a lot of tax revenue. It won't cannibalize anything, which that is kind of the key takeaway for other states that you're seeing. A lot of things like Maryland last year, a lot of concern from the brick and mortar casinos that an online casino market would greatly, hurt their revenue. And so that's kind of a big takeaway from this report. I would expect some legislators to introduce online casino legislation sometime early next year in the early session and see if it gets anywhere. We'll see. It is a very small state, to your point, the small state in the union by population. And so, really it's not too big of a market mover for anybody, but it's still something, and we'll see. But just a little quick note too on the online casino cannibalization thing, that is also kind of re-emerging because in New Jersey, this was last month was the first month online casino revenue or handle surpassed brick and mortar casino revenue handle. So that's kind of a note, and people are like, wait, maybe it is an issue. So that's going to be something to watch in the future and kind of see some analysts and how they're taking that number in New Jersey.
And finally, what would happen if sports betting was legalized in the state of Texas? I saw this study that you guys posted over at LSR. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering here. If I'm not mistaken, their projection is a potential $32 billion industry with a B. I mean, Pat, that is huge. How can't Texas get this done?
I mean, that would be probably the largest market. I mean, I think at this point that is the largest market of sports betting that would be in the U.S. And yeah, it's just, I think that's the takeaway. The Eilers and Krychek was commissioned by the Texas Sports Betting Alliance to do this kind of market research. They first did it in 2023. Then they came back and did it again. And yeah, they increased their potential, their estimated handle by 43%. And that's based on things like the ramp up of Maryland and Ohio, how quickly those markets matured. That's kind of how they came to that conclusion, along with a few other things. And yeah, I think what that says is this is going to be a market that the focus is turned to. Of course, we've got some states that are very close, that very likely could legalize next year, if not the following year, with Minnesota, Georgia, even Alabama. We're hearing a lot about kind of some rumblings there. But Texas, with the potential to be the largest market, you're putting a lot of spotlight on that. And I think the market is going to look at that even harder than they have been. Of course, we know that 2025 is very unlikely because of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's been very adamantly against gambling. But you got to lay the groundwork, and the sportsbook industry has already done a lot of that. But I think with this report, we'll say, hey, we got to really double down on that and get this live sooner rather than later, even if that is 2027.
All right. Makes a lot of sense, Pat. All right. Well, Pat, you and I will see each other, I believe, next week back here on the show. I know Thanksgiving is coming for you and for me, too. Great to have you back here on NewsWire. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, as always, Craig.
All right. As a reminder, you can download the SportsGrid app anytime on your phone. It's free for iOS and Android. Just take out your phone there and scan that QR code. Gives you news, notes, information, and it's a great time to check it out because, folks, we got the NFL coming back here on Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. Folks, there are three games on Thanksgiving and also one college game, if I'm not mistaken, as well. That normal game that they play Thursday night, I believe 6 of the last 7 years, Mississippi State, they moved that to Friday. So Tulane and Memphis will be on Thursday night, but you can catch our show Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, and then Thursday it's going to be Pro Football Today. And as a quick programming reminder, Mike Blewett, the great Mike Blewett, who you watch on Pro Football Today each and every Sunday, is going to be in for me hosting NewsWire tomorrow and Wednesday as I take a couple of days off. But I will be back with you guys on Saturday morning for Fantasy Sports Today with George Kurtz. All right, coming up next, Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, is up next. The very latest on the Eagles and also where do the 49ers go from here? Do they still have a chance to make the playoffs? How good are the Packers, too? Adam Caplan tells us next. Don't go away.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Adam Caplan in the house, our SportsGrid insider. And Adam, welcome back to the show. 1 year ago, this was a team in the Philadelphia Eagles who played last night, who began one of the most epic free falls we've seen in a long time in the NFL. Just loss after loss, get to the playoffs, they lose again. It doesn't appear that they're headed in that direction this year, Adam. It feels like maybe they're headed in the opposite direction.
You know, Craig, it's funny. They were 10-1. I know what you're referring to. They wound up losing 6 out of 7.
the players were like miserable at 10-1. They know they were not playing well, but they had an unbelievably tough schedule. They kept winning, but they weren't winning cleanly. Then you fast forward to this season, as you mentioned, the second longest winning streak in the NFL right now at 7. They're playing efficient football. But the funny thing about this is, Craig, for the first time since Jeffrey Lurie's owned the team in 30 years, they've become a running team. They never have been. In fact, they're winning by running the football, and their defense is playing elite. They've not given up over 300 yards of total offense in the last 7 games on defense. It's really remarkable what they're doing. Your Commanders now have lost 3 in a row, so the Eagles have taken control of that division. But I still say the Lions are better. Man, Eagle fans are all over me saying the Lions are much better. The Lions, like they're just dominant. The Eagles are right behind them. There's no question about it. And we'll get into a couple other teams like the Niners and others. But the Eagles, I'm glad you mentioned them. They're playing great football. It's just not quite what I thought. I thought they might have to win a different way because of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, who unfortunately didn't play, Dallas Goedert. But they've flipped the script, and they're running with the football like they've never done before. It's pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah, and I would say what's really fascinating to me, Adam, in this day and age where running backs have proven to be dispensable, you may look at the biggest offseason acquisitions in the AFC and the NFC with running backs. Maybe, I mean, look, Barkley still has a lot more left in the tank, but Derrick Henry at the tail end of his career, Barkley, I mean, he's not going to run like this for the next 5 years. But maybe this changes the narrative a little bit. I don't know. Teams and executives really have not valued this position, but I think that it's going to change at least a little bit because neither player was all that valued, I think, going into the offseason.
It's interesting. I was talking to my friend Greg Cosell from NFL Films. We were actually talking about that. He goes strictly by his tape study of 32 teams. He said it's amazing how all of a sudden the league has kind of rediscovered the running game, as you're talking about. It's actually happening from a tape study standpoint. And also the data would show you that so many teams now have kind of gotten back to running the football where, man, I've covered this business 27 years. It's rarely been like this. You mentioned Derrick Henry. Don't want to forget about Josh Jacobs, who's done a good job for Green Bay and a big reason why they're winning. It's had a comeback. And by the way, I'll admit that I thought $12.6 million a year for a guy who had a lot of injuries with the Giants, for Saquon Barkley and the Eagles, was a lot of money to pay, but they were right. The Eagles, in fact, as Joe Banner, the former Eagles president, told me recently, that contract would look like it would be a bargain by the time the season ended, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, no, Howie's done a great job there. Again, 49ers and Packers yesterday. We'll get to the 49ers here in a minute. Packers appear to be a playoff team again this year, Adam. I know Jordan Love has his ups, has his downs. You mentioned Jacobs yesterday. It felt like more of a concerted effort to get him the ball as well. And, Green Bay kind of had it easy once Brock Purdy was listed out. At least that was my feeling going into the game.
Yeah, no question about it. It's funny, when Scott and I talked on Thursday, when I went over the games that I like, I'm like, we didn't quite know that Purdy wouldn't play, but I still like the Packers to cover that number anyway because the Niners are just not playing well. The Packers now, the big story, though, is Jeff Hafley, the defense coordinator, the former Boston College head coach, who's doing a great job. They're running a 43 scheme, Craig, for the first time in well over a decade, and it's working. Xavier McKinney, who the Eagles, I'm told, were on, they tried to sign him. The Packers beat him to it. McKinney now has 7 interceptions on the season. That's a lot for a safety. He's doing a great job. They've kind of turned things around. Now, the other thing, and you mentioned Jordan Love, earlier in the season when the defense was not playing well, they put more on him, but now he's not having to throw the ball as much, and it's working. They're a really good football team. They're not quite where the Lions are. The Lions are clearly better, but the Packers are certainly going to make the playoffs, and that's a good thing in Green Bay.
All right. And, clearly at this point, 49ers up against it. Hopefully they'll get Purdy back. They'll need him this week. But here's the truth, Adam, is that any team that wins out in the NFC West is winning that division because this thing is absolutely wide open. This is the longest odds the 49ers have had to win the division in years. They're 6-1 right now after that loss yesterday. The Rams, they help you out one week and then they torch you the next week. Can't figure them out. Cardinals probably played above their head most of the season, but they're still right in it. And Seattle has that home field advantage. There's no question, Adam, this is coming down to Week 17, final game, Sunday Night Football. I don't know what the matchup looks like, but one of these teams is going to be playing in that game.
Yeah, it's completely wide open. I'm so disappointed with the Niners. Look, I know they've had injuries. We mentioned Purdy's right shoulder.
Though my sense is, based on what I was told over the weekend, they're expecting Purdy to be able to practice, and they think he'll project to play against the Bills this week, which is obviously a huge game. But look, McCaffrey doesn't look quite right. This is a bad injury. This Achilles strain, it's a very rare injury for a running back. He doesn't look quite right. Ayuk lost for the season. Their defense is not playing anywhere close to the level of last year. And we know about Nick Bosa's injury. In fact, he has two. That's troublesome. They're just not the same football team. It's been a wild season. Teams that no one thought had a chance. We'd even mention the Vikings, the quietest 92 you've ever seen. Who saw this? Sam Darnold. No. Nobody wanted this guy, who's completely turned on his career, turning around from being a guy that nobody wanted to being an efficient passer. It's been a great season. You mentioned the Cardinals getting back that division. You're right. You nailed it. They completely overachieved. I never saw this coming. Now they're 6-5. They still have a good chance. If I had to put my money on it right now, because the Seahawks defense has turned their season around, I'd have to put my money on the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, let's skip ahead to the Commanders. I've talked a ton about them. They've lost 3 straight games. Again, I'm not really all that discouraged because I saw the offense pop again at the end of the game, but clearly something that teams have identified, Adam, on film to stop Jaden Daniels in the first half of the last few games.
Yeah, but I would argue, and I know he's not on the injury report, the rib injury. He did not look right against the Eagles last week. He actually played poorly. He doesn't look the same. Now, the other thing is they need a better pass target group. They'll address their issues with the offensive line. They need like 3 new starters, at least 2, maybe as many as 3. And they got to improve the pass target group. That's how they're going to get better.
All right, Adam. Thanks again for coming on. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Thank you.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to dive into the latest in the college football playoff chase. Also a look-alike contest for the National League MVP, and also Puka Nakua's thoughts on the NFC West. Why are we doing all that? You got to stick around. It's time now for some last licks. This is a little surprising. Being reported yesterday in an interview, Puka Nakua who plays for the Los Angeles Rams, according to Lindsey Thury, who covers the Rams, stated that Puka Nacua only recently learned that the Rams played in the NFC West. How is this possible? That Puka Nacua is a player in the NFL and didn't know what division that he was in? I got to tell you, I think that there is some miscommunication here. I think asked again, he probably knows. How is this possible that a player doesn't know that, like, for example, and I know he's only been in the NFL 2 years, last year the first, this year the second. Like, is it just a coincidence that the Rams are playing the Seahawks twice and the 49ers twice and the Arizona Cardinals twice? It does not add up for me. Now, there are some things that are real. There's conspiracy theories, the whole thing. This one in particular just doesn't make a lot of sense, because at some point I would think that the player recognizes that they're playing against 3 other teams twice in the same season. And was there any point at all that he would have asked the question, why are we playing these teams twice and not playing the others? That's just me. That's just the reality theorist in me. But indeed, if this is indeed the case, I don't know how it's possible, but we'll go ahead and we'll give it to him. All right, now let's move on from Puka Nacua, who again is playing very well for the Rams, to the Southeastern Conference, who's having a really tough time finding out which teams are going to qualify for this college football playoff. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the SEC has dominated the BCS championship, the college football championship, the AP, all the polls for years. But now that they've opened things up to a 12-team playoff, the thought process is that maybe 4 or 5 teams would get in from the SEC. But here's the issue. On Saturday, Alabama ended up losing to Oklahoma, and Mississippi lost to Florida. And the thought process is potentially that those 2 teams may not make it into the college football playoff. So Brett McMurphy, who put out a very funny quip the other day, essentially said the Southeastern Conference is now looking to expand the college football playoff beyond the 12 teams and maybe even a dozen more, maybe 12 more. Look, here is the reality. The SEC makes the most money. It is the most competitive conference. So all these things make sense. Now, again, I'm a Gator. I'm biased in this as well. But I will say that it's going to be very hard to justify putting more than 3 teams from the SEC right now into the college football playoff. Of course, you're going to have Tennessee. Of course, you're going to have Georgia. And now that Texas has moved on to the college football playoff, I think those 3 teams, barring anything crazy, are locks. But who beyond that would you put in? I mean, right now it can't be Mississippi. I mean, Auburn, Texas A&M, they're fighting each other back and forth. Alabama already has 3 losses. So I know that they want to do this, but there's going to be a lot of controversy on the back end of that top 12 college football playoff if one of those 2 teams that I just mentioned, Mississippi and Alabama, if either of them is playing for this. All right, finally, there was a look-alike contest for arguably the best player in Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani. Yes, this is true. They actually, in Los Angeles, had a look-alike contest to see who looked most like Shohei Ohtani. But the most hysterical part of this contest, folks, is not the fact that they had a look-alike contest, and not the fact that the guy that actually won this contest kind of looked like him a little bit, but the New York Post reports that the winner of the contest, the award, was $17? $17 for the winner of this contest? I mean, that's it? All of this work to get $17? Yikes. I mean, come on, man. Got to find a better way. That'll do it for our show. Thanks again to Adam Caplan for coming on the program. Again, Vinnie Iyer for coming on, and also for Pat Evans as well. For my director, Luke, my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Most important programming note for all of you, those of you who are loyal watchers and listeners to the show, appreciate you so much. But I am taking some time off, so I'm going to be away the next few days. Mike Blewett is going to be hosting this show Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll be back with you in 1 week, next Monday, recapping all the NFL and all the college football as we get closer to the college football playoff. So make sure you stay tuned, because we still have some great programming the rest of the day. We've got Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern, followed by our football programming leading you up to Monday Night Football and the Harbaugh Bowl. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I'll see you back in 1 week.